That's odd. It's really odd. All right, I need to follow my instructions. That's all kind of shit. There we go. All right, Rachel, can you hear me okay? I'm going to kick off the slideshow in a second and run through how we can help people get a handle on some of the remote environments they're trying to manage during this interesting lockdown period we've been faced with. Once I get an okay from you, Rachel, I will kick off the presentation. All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Jeff from Cybersecurity Compliance Corp. And today I want to run through some tips and tricks around how you can manage your remote users. I'm going to start by giving a few examples of folks that have made the mistake of using technology when they really didn't understand the risks. So first of all, we've got a young man here who was on TV in Hawaii giving a traffic report on the news. Unfortunately, as many inexperienced video call users do, he left a sticky note with his password on the TV in the frame. This type of exposure is not uncommon. When you are on camera, it is important that you are aware of what is in the shot. This has happened in Canada, it's happened in the US, it's happened just about everywhere. In France, a television station was actually shut down after displaying a network ID and password on a newscast. They were hacked the next day and took several days to recover. So always be wary of what's in frame. Phishing emails remain the #1 attack vector out there. If you are working from home, you are subject to an increasing number of distractions, whether it's following the news, whether it's keeping track of your kids, cat running across your keyboard as you spill your coffee. The opportunities to click on that email that you shouldn't click on, that button, that website, they've increased with the remote workforce. So educating your teams on what a phishing email is and how to avoid the pitfall of falling victim to a phishing email is critical. We actually had an instance a couple of weeks ago where one of our accounting team members received an email that looked like it was from me, and there was an interaction that happened. They were requesting payment and shipped through an invoice to be paid. So our team, fortunately, is up on their training and put a stop to that discourse, and we didn't pay the invoice. But many people are falling victim to these attacks, even more so in a distracted environment like we're in today. The Internet of Things, or IoT. We all have smart devices that we rely on to make our lives and our jobs more efficient. It's important that you're aware of those devices and their security. Many companies have fallen victim to installing an HVAC solution that they can remotely control, only to find the security gaps in that solution are outside of their risk tolerance, and they end up attacked. So whatever you connect to your network where you're doing, conducting business and storing and communicating potentially confidential data, make sure you're aware of the devices that are accessing that network. You are only as strong as your weakest link when it comes to defending against a cyber attack. And of course, my favorite word of the year, coronavirus is a fun one, but Zoom bombing and meeting bombing has become part of our language, really because one company who wasn't quite ready to scale was forced to very quickly, and their security gaps were immediately exposed. You can't live in a world where you deny your security gaps. You need to admit them and deal with them. That's happening now for many companies in this space. But up until very recently, people were still being attacked through Zoom bombing, not configuring their software properly. And really, this is a question of user error. Even though the defaults weren't appropriately set up within some of these tools, there are ways to better secure whatever you're using. And there are certainly choices that you want to make if you're dealing with more confidential information. I thought it might be appropriate and of interest to everybody to see how quickly attacks proliferate. You can see the date on this. This is data through March 27th, which, for many people around the world was when they were sort of just off. The lockdowns had just happened. There hadn't been a lot of time running on this. At that point, from January 1st through March 27th, malicious emails circulating numbered close to 200,000. That's how quickly the players in this space evolve. Malicious files, 81,000 malicious files, where if you clicked and opened, it infected you and your network. And 23,000 malicious URLs. Now, think about the amount of misinformation that can be distributed, how quickly it can be dispersed, thinking about these numbers. And then think about your average person who's trying to get their CERB, trying to get their wage subsidy, looking for information from CRA or from their bank or their insurer, and really not taking the care they normally would to vet the source of that information. It's really a perfect storm. There's nothing worse than getting through all of the shutdown, taking the steps you need to protecting your business, only to find yourself falling victim to a cyber attack and losing the business anyways. So I'm going to take you through, over the course of the next 15 or 20 minutes, a really quick view of the things that you should be doing as an employer to help support your remote workforce. And then I'm going to run through a little bit more around what individuals should be doing to secure their environments. So first of all, when it comes to, actually, give me 1 second. I'm actually gonna check the chat, see if there's anything that I need to address from any of you fine folks out there just now. Fantastic. All right. So if you have any questions, feel free to shoot them into chat. Once I'm done the presentation, I'll flip back onto the screen and we can go through any of your specific questions around cyber. Perfect. So supporting your remote workforce, really it comes down to a series of steps. There's a group of activities around policies, assessments, education, and compliance testing, which really involve preparing, or when an event happens, immediately preparing for the security needs of that event. Second is there are some system and infrastructure things that a company needs to deal with to best empower their remote workforce. And finally, integrating your cyber response with your disaster recovery and business continuity planning. I think we've all seen that very little that happens in your businesses these days is independent of the technology. You know, this was a pandemic, virus, a person-to-person issue, a health issue, but as everybody was pushed out of their offices to home, it rapidly became a technology issue, empowering those people to stay connected, whether personally or professionally. So integrating your disaster and risk management, disaster recovery and risk management programs, I think are critical to any business going forward. So first of all, as a business manager, business owner out there, whether you're in the startup space or have grown a little bit and now you're dealing with an expanded workforce, we're not a large company. We have a relatively small workforce, but all of our folks have been prepped for work from home and had the tools to be able to work from home from the beginning. We recognize that not everybody can always be in office, and while there are some roles that can't be done outside of a factory floor or office space, most can be prepared for remote work. The starting point is to draft or adopt policies that cover all of the major risk or procedural areas. Strongly recommend that you consider for your organization policies around acceptable use of technology, privacy, data protection, social media, and use of photographs or images. These may be complemented by a dedicated cybersecurity policy, but most organizations in today's environment are seeing that this is really the set of policies that will guide activities by your teams as they try to work from remote locations online. Assessments are really important. It's one thing to say we've got policies, but unless you're actually assessing or testing that those policies are being followed, you've only done half the job. So it's critical that you get out there, find yourself a security assessment tool or consultant. We find consultants tend to be a bit pricey. For larger organizations, they're a great fit. For smaller organizations, look for something off the shelf, attend events like this, go through webinars, but ideally get something where you can document your environment, where your gaps might be, so that you can start working on it. It can be done both as an overall security assessment or through individual remote location assessments. Certainly we've taken the time through this to create a tool that's available for free for people looking to assess the status of the various home environments they manage. I'm happy to share that with anybody. There are other tools on the market, and really we just would like everybody to get started and try to understand where their cybersecurity environment sits. Education and compliance testing really then are that last reinforcing element. It's great to attend an event like this. It's really nice to do once a year training in person. But the right answer for keeping people aware on the cybersecurity side is to run frequent, and I mean monthly, 5, 10, 15-minute training videos with a quiz at the end. Get people talking, thinking about cybersecurity just as a part of their daily life. Run phishing tests every month. Keep people on their toes, wondering when it's coming. They're more likely to spot an actual fraud when they see it. These solutions are incredibly inexpensive. We're talking about dollars per user per month, not even tens of dollars per user per month. Again, happy to follow up. Any questions anybody has looking for tools that suit a small business's budget, we can help. Okay, on to a little bit more of the infrastructure conversation. And of course, there's a little bit of jargon in here, and I'll do my best to explain what the various terms mean. In all likelihood, when you're going through these elements, you're likely dealing with your IT department or an external service provider. Nonetheless, these are all elements that you should be questioning as a business owner. So first of all is how you're establishing remote access. There are more secure options and less secure options. Using a VPN or tunneling solution really entails connecting 2 points directly, meaning you can only enter the tunnel from one end or the other. We use it to connect to our more secure confidential applications. When we're outside of the office, it means that we flip on our VPN and we only have access to that one tool or area of our network. So it's quite secure, as are direct portals. So if you log into QuickBooks in the cloud using their multi-factor authentication, that's a secure tool because you're into a portal through secure mechanism. A little bit less secure is where you've got remote desktop access or direct application access. Really challenging to get security as robust in those instances. None of them are terrible, but again, there are options when you need security. VPNs and portals are the way to go. In terms of authentication, authorization, and access controls, this is about limiting your exposure. So your users should all have role-based access into your various systems. Don't just give everybody admin access because you think you're short on time and can't afford to customize their roles. That's how you get your entire network shut down and all of your data lost in the event of an attack. Role-based security says that my person in charge of accounting only sees accounting. They don't deal with all of my operations and online ordering and supply management and whatever else. AP is separate from bank rec. For accountants, a lot of this stuff is natural. It's called segregation of duties. In your systems, it's important that you think about what would happen if a particular user was compromised and how many parts of your system would be then able to be accessed by the other side. Enforce a robust password policy. I'm going to say this many times over the next 10 minutes, but passwords are one of those weakest links. Inevitably, we see statistics year over year about the most frequently used passwords. And top of the list is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Top 5 includes things like admin, password. None of these are acceptable. So follow a robust password policy. Make sure you're using two-factor authentication at a minimum. That means that you've got a password plus a PIN or randomly generated key or questions that validate your identity. And build timeouts into applications or use applications with timeouts. Turn those on if they're configurable. Timeout protects you. It may seem like an inconvenience sometimes, but better safe in that particular instance than leaving something open, having your dog run across the keyboard, and suddenly opening up your machine and network to an attack. And finally, securing endpoint devices. This is all about patch management and virus protection. Passwords, again, important, but you need to be up to date. Anybody who sees security patches and updates come across their screen and they say, well, I'm not going to deal with it now, I'm just going to defer and do it later. It later needs to be now. You need to be regularly patching. Again, Zoom is a great example of where people were not paying attention. There were major gaps. Zoom started throwing out security patches. Unfortunately, not everybody was applying them or updating their app. Turn on automatic updates or ensure that your patch management program is active. And disaster recovery. So it's great to have a cyber plan. It's important that you go through not just prevention, but recovery after the fact and what steps you're going to take if you get attacked. But don't do it in isolation. All right, we all do fire drills where we walk up and down stairs in the event that someday we have a real fire and need to get out of the building. It should be no different with your cyber plan or your virus response plan. Anything that impacts your ability to do business needs to be integrated into your disaster recovery and business continuity planning. So don't just integrate, but also then test the entire plan. Make sure you're ready in the event that something happens that is unexpected. All right, I'm going to drop out one more time and take a look at comments, see if there's anything anybody wants specifically to address before I continue. All right, good stuff. So now we're going to move on to securing your home environment. These are tips really for individuals that are sitting at home, that have taken work assets home with them, and have been asked to continue to try to accomplish what they had been doing in the office. When we walk into an office, we go in through a keypad locked door, or there's somebody at the front of the office. You know, that's really helpful. And then we let our guard down and we just go ahead and work and don't really think about who's walking by, what's on our desk, or any of the other distractions that could cause a problem. Now we're working from home in plain sight of a number of people with other folks on our network and devices. So again, you're going to see a little bit of repetition. It's important that people get that message that you're not too small for an attack. And while Facebook could survive a number of attacks and still retain its customer base, if your customer data is breached, stolen, your site is shut down through an attack, it's much less likely that you survive that attack. One of the stats that's quoted out there about small businesses is 60% of small businesses that suffer a cyber attack are out of business within 6 months. So think about the number of people on this particular session, on this conference overall, and think about 6 out of 10 of those people going out of business after a cyber attack. And then understand that everybody's going to get hit about every 3 to 5 years. Don't be one of the 6 that dies. Make sure that you're prepared to be one of the 4 that survives. First of all, policies. So I'm speaking to all of those folks out there, whether you're an owner, a founder, an employee, a resource, a consultant. You're sitting at home trying to interact with your business contacts, with your colleagues. Read your company policies. It's one thing for the company to have them. It's another thing for you to proactively read them. Understand where the guidance sits, what tools you should be using, know your way around your security policies, data protection, privacy, and your obligations. It is incumbent on each user to keep the company secure, its data secure. Understand the password policy, follow it at home, and frankly, for any device that's on a network where you are conducting business, ensure those devices are equally well protected. If everyone in your house is responsible and using complex passwords, but your 12-year-old is sitting up in their room with their phone and the password is puppy, that's probably not going to help you. That's a way in for an intruder. So make sure everybody in your family is aware that is accessing that network, that they need to follow the same password policy. Keep up to date with your online security, cybersecurity education. Can't stress enough, those little videos that you can watch every week or 2 weeks or month, that's what keeps you aware of what's going on. And awareness is everything when it comes to responding to cyber attacks. Again, we experienced one of these very targeted spear phishing email attacks with a pretty reasonable back and forth in terms of conversation with one of our team members. And if she wasn't just alert, aware, looking for things that might pop out at her because we do regular education, we might have missed that and sent a payment out to somebody who was trying to access our information or our cash. So be aware. Awareness is best promoted through regular online education. How secure is my home network? Well, again, we're talking about small businesses, and I run one. So we don't pay all of our team to have separate networks at home, and I wouldn't expect you to. As you grow, one of the things to contemplate for permanent remote establishments is to run their own separate work network in a home environment. If you have dedicated work from home staff, and frankly, I think moving forward, we will see many arrangements move to permanent work from home. Think about paying for or having the team member put in a second network dedicated to confidential work. It really does add a layer of security around that work information. Make sure the network and device passwords are unique and complex. I could just say password for a half an hour and it would be worth its weight in gold if people follow the advice. And keep your firmware up to date with patches and security updates. If you don't know what your firmware is, it's the software that runs the hardware at home, the software on your router. Okay, it's how your devices actually work, operate. Contact your IT department, contact your IT support professional, get them to help you. Your work environment is now, your home environment is now a work environment. And so you need to get the support required to keep it secure. Endpoints or devices. So this is everything from tablets and phones to the laptop you took home from the office. And I appreciate it's 2:30 now. Anybody that's going to drop off, if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email, throw it in chat, and I'll get back to you. I've got a couple of slides left. I'll finish them up and then take any questions one-on-one. Know your devices. Keep an inventory of what's on your network. If, again, somebody at home happens to click on something they shouldn't, shut you down, create a problem in the network, you need to know everything that's been infected. If you clean everything that's been infected except for one machine, and that machine then connects back again and you haven't taken preventative steps going forward, you may be facing the infection all over again. Restrict the use of devices. Make sure that social devices or those that might be exposed to or more vulnerable, use a different network. Possibly stay on mobile, whatever the options are. Turn your device off or log out when not in use. Make sure your antivirus is up and running. And again, security patches, both on your home machines and on the work machine you brought home. I always put video conferencing in. I think it's important in today's day and age to ensure that you're doing the steps, taking the steps necessary to be safe when video conferencing. Turn your camera off when not in use. I have a camera cover that I slide on and off depending on whether I'm using it. Always look back or look around you and know what's in frame when you're going to be on camera. Sharing confidential information inadvertently is a very bad thing and creates a breach that would fall under the cyber domain. Try and be private, lock your doors, create an environment where you're not going to be compromised by somebody walking by inappropriately. Only use software that the organization has approved. if you're not happy with it, don't go find your own solution. If somebody says don't use Zoom, then don't use Zoom. Use the approved tools, and don't share images unless you have explicit approval. That's breach of privacy. You need to get approval from anyone to use their image online. So be careful about those screen captures or recordings. You need to get people's permission before you use them. Data storage and transfer. We talked a bit about this on the company side. On the individual side, use email and messaging tools that your company approves, your organization approves. Don't store files locally. Don't use thumb drives or USB drives. They are not a safe alternative and are easily lost and then compromised. Make sure that if you get a suspicious message, you have a secondary means of communication to validate the message. It's actually a great proactive step that you can take to help people know there's a mechanism for checking if they feel something is suspicious. And finally, log out of your applications when not in use to help protect access. All right, last point I want to make is about physical security. Shut the door, lock the door. We're all used to locking up at the office. When your work devices are at home, don't work out in front of a window where everybody can see you on a work computer. Don't store your devices on the love seat in the front of your living room where everyone can see it. Lock the door when you take your dog for that 2-hour walk in the morning. Everyone knows people are at home with their work assets. That creates an opportunity. So just do everything you can to help discourage a physical access to your work data. That's it for me. Stay home, stay safe. Hopefully some of this was useful to those folks that have been working from home and may be doing so into the future. And if you have any questions, feel free to throw them on to chat and I'll stick around and answer them. Otherwise, you can always email me or contact us at Cybersecurity Compliance Corp. Thank you very much. All right, thanks everybody. If you have any questions, again, my name is Jeff. You can get me at yourcybersecuritypulse.com and have a great rest of the conference. Rachel, thanks very much.